Have you ever heard of a car that doesn't just crash, but seems to bring death to anyone connected to it? It sounds like something out of a horror movie, but the story is real, and it begins with one man, James Dean, a car he called Little Bastard. James Dean was born on February 8, 1931, in Marion, Indiana. He was the only child of his parents, and although his life was short, his impact on Hollywood was enormous. In the 1950s, he became one of the most influential actors of his generation. His performances felt raw, emotional, and real, and he quickly became a symbol of rebellion and youth culture. He only starred in three major films, but each one left a lasting mark. In East of Eden, he showed incredible emotional depth. In Rebel Without Cause, he became the face of teenage rebellion. And in Jane, he proved he could carry a large-scale drama. Even after his death, his performances earned him two Academy Award nominations, making him the only actor in history to receive two posthumous acting nominations. But acting wasn't his only passion. James Dean loved speed. He was deeply involved in racing and spent much of his free time driving fast cars and competing in events. In 1955, he purchased a car that would later become one of the most infamous vehicles in history, a Porsche 550 Spider. This car was lightweight, extremely fast, and built for racing. Dean customized it, added racing numbers, and had words Little Bastard painted across it. The name itself added a strange personality to the machine, almost as if it were something more than just a car. On September 30, 1955, Dean started for a race in Salinas, in California. At first, the plan was to tow the car behind a station wagon, but at last moment, his mechanic suggested that he drive it instead, so he would get more familiar with the car. That decision would cost him his life. At around 5:45 p.m., while driving on Route 466, a four-sedan driven by Donald Turnspy suddenly turned into his lane. Dean tried to avoid the collision, but there wasn't enough time. The cars crashed almost head-on. The impact was devastating. The Porsche, being much lighter, absorbed the full force of the crash. Dean suffered catastrophic injuries, including a broken neck and severe internal damage. He was rushed to the hospital, but was pronounced dead on arrival. He was only 24 years old. That alone would have been enough to make this, a tragic story. But what happened after his death is what turned it into something much darker. Just days before the accident, British actor Alec Guinness reportedly saw Dean with a car and felt something was wrong. He warned him and saying, "Please never get in that car. If you do, you will be found dead in it within a week." 7 days later, Dean was dead. After the crash, the story didn't end. In fact, that's when the legend really began to grow. According to Warren Bates, the idea of so-called curse may not have come from the car itself, but from a man named George Barris. Barris claimed he was the first person to purchase the wrecked Porsche, and in 1956, he began displaying it in public. From that moment on, strange stories started to spread. Over the next few years, Barry described a series of mysterious accidents linked to the car. From 1956 to 1960, he claimed that people were injured while interacting with it. That parts from the car, caused crashes, and even that the truck driver died during one of the incidents. These stories quickly fueled the belief that the car was cursed. However, not everyone agrees with that version of the event. Research by Persian historian Lee Ruskin suggests that many of these claims may have originated from Barry's own book, published years later, which means that some stories may have been exaggerated or even created to keep public interest alive. In reality, after their crash, the car was declared total loss by the insurance company. The wreck was sold to a doctor and amateur racer named William Ashbury. Instead of preserving the car, Ashbury dismantled it, removing the engine and mechanical parts and installing them into his own race car, a Lotus 9. He even gave the modified vehicle a nickname and raced it throughout 1956. During one of these races, Ashbury himself was involved in a minor accident, but he survived. However, another driver connected to the car didn't. A doctor named Troy McHenry, who had borrowed parts from Dan's Porsche, crashed during the same event and was killed after hitting a tree. For many people, the incident becomes the strongest evidence that the curse was real. Even so, the details remain unclear. Ashbury later suggested that McHenry may not have been using the exact parts people believed. This raises an important question. Was this a real curse or just a coincidence that people chose to connect? There are even more doubts about Barry's role in the story. Some of Dan's closest friends insisted that Barry was never part of Dan's inner circle and had no direct involvement with his racing life. This suggests that Barry may have played a larger role in shaping the legend than in the actual events. Still, Barry continued to promote the story. He attempted to rebuild the wrecked Porsche, but the damage was too severe. Instead, he reshaped the parts of it and turned it into a display piece. The car was exhibited as James Dean's last sports car and toured across California as part of safety campaigns and car shows. Thousands of people saw it, and the legend continued to grow. In 1959, while stored in a garage in Fresno, the remains of the car reportedly caught fire, but strangely, the damage was minimal. Only their tires burned and their paint was slightly scorched. No one was injured, and the cause of the fire was never determined. And then comes the most mysterious part of all. In 1960, the remains of Little Bastard were being transported back to Los Angeles after an exhibition. According to Barry, the car was sealed, inside a container. When he arrived, the seal was still intact, but the car was gone. No sign of a theft, no damage to the container, no explanation. It has simply disappeared. To this day, no one knows what happened to it. Some researchers believe that the disappearance may not have been accidental. By the 1960s, public interest in the car was fading, and the car culture was shifting toward new trends. It is possible that the disappearance was a deliberate move to keep the legend alive. The mystery itself became part of the story. Even today, small pieces believed to be from the car still exist. A fragment of aluminum is displayed in a museum, and another institution once claimed to have the car's door and even offered $1 million reward for proof of the ownership of the remaining parts. No one ever came forward. Some original components, like the engine and transmission, are still accounted for, but the car itself has never been found. So what are we left with? A young Hollywood icon, a deadly crash, a series of strange and sometimes questionable events, and a car that vanished without trace. Was it really cursed, or was it simply a story shaped by tragedy, coincidence, and human imagination? Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. But one thing is certain, the legend of Little Bastard has never disappeared, and perhaps it will never.